Welcome to the Pursuit of Glory. This is a real-life, real-time documentary about a 15-year-old Korean-Australian boy with a dream to become a world boxing and UFC champion. But with all dreams and all paths, there are always obstacles. I am a Generation X dad trying to raise a Gen Alpha son. Although we are only one generation apart, we grew up in such different times and our principles differ. And this is the challenge. But as once a wise martial artist by the name of Bruce Lee said, you must learn to be like water and practice adapting to whatever situation may present. Whatever it may be, good or bad. Let us see how the boy reacts to bad news. The boy prepared diligently to step into the square ring and spar for the very first time. But unfortunately the sparring fell through as something came up for the other party. We do not live in Mexico or America where boxing gyms are abundant, so we must learn to adapt and do with what we have and use what we can get. Creating a fighter is a fine balancing act, and my son is the first person I have ever trained, and every father that ever starts to train their son in boxing, they know that the journey is a long, tough, hard road. But you never want your fighter to burn out, as once the fighter burns out, then it's extremely difficult to relight the fire. So, since the build-up to the spar was let down, I gave him a golden ticket to go out with his friends and relax for a couple days, as I do not wish to push him so early in the journey, as there will come times when he will have to push and sacrifice through a lot of pain to attain what he dreams. The golden ticket for him was an excuse to see his delinquent friends, as I haven't seen him in a couple of days now. I give the boy an inch and he takes a mile. He's just a young kid with too much energy. If I just left the house and didn't come home for a couple of days at that age, I would have received the biggest butt whooping and would have got grounded, made to do extra homework and do extra chores, and have a reduction in pocket money. But this Generation Alpha act as they are untouchable and act without fear of any punishment or consequences, as society no longer accepts the physical disciplining of children. This is a huge dilemma and challenge. So, until I find a remedy, I need to let out my frustrations somehow. I can't go for a run due to my 5 broken bones in my foot, so I thought I would go for a long walk with my crutches. Next week I'll get my boot off and won't need my crutches anymore. So I walk and I pray that the boy returns like the prodigal son with a refreshed attitude. Whilst I walked, I had a chance to reflect on a few things. I am categorized as being part of the Generation X and my son is categorized as Gen Alpha. This mix is many times like oil and water, as with only a couple cut as within only a couple generations, the world, cultures, and social behaviors have changed dramatically. Us Gen X kids grew up riding bikes on the streets with friends, scraping our knees on concrete from doing outdoor physical activities, all while listening to our parents' instructions and respecting their word. But now we are raising seemingly overly entitled children born into an era of touchscreens, algorithms, instant gratification, and lack of corporal punishment, as that has been pushed out by those exceptions in society who have done extreme things. Whatever the case may be, we must learn to adapt and adjust. In just a couple generations, we have gone from purposeful living and survival to hedonistic and sedentary lifestyles. This is an extreme contrast that is destined to have grand ramifications to future generations. I cannot change the world, but I've got to at least try to do my best with my son. As if not me, who will look out for the boy? I'm trying to teach my son discipline, self-control, self-belief, and positive virtues so that he may grow up to be not just a positive member of society, but moreover, so that he may have the skills to pay the bills and support himself and his future family. As in this world, without skills, you cannot earn currency. And without currency, you cannot survive in this modern world. When Forrest Gump's heart was broken by his crush, he didn't know what to do or how to react. So he just started to run and run, just as a way with dealing with the pain and emotional trauma. I cannot run, but I can still move. The safety boot comes off next week, and I'll be able to more actively train the boy. And like his old delinquent days of hanging out with his delinquent friends, the boy has disappeared again. He will be back when he is ready, but until then, it's a lot of anxiety, as the first few years in high school was a nightmare, and he ended up becoming friends with the wrong crowd. But as long as he doesn't come home escorted by the police for delinquent behavior, I will be relieved. This is why I have such a dilemma and feel a lot of frustration, as becoming a world champion in any field is difficult, but it is pretty much next to impossible in combat sports if you do not possess self-discipline and a hungry desire, which is one thing a lot of the Generation Alpha misses. This makes me question and doubt so many things, as I want him to do well, as he has chosen the sport. But he has chosen the toughest sport in the world, and hence a parent's natural instinct is to worry. So, to ease the tension and cope with the situation, I've decided to go for a long walk, hoping to find some temporary relief. This week my son was scheduled to have his first sparring session at Sydney University Boxing Club, but unfortunately life happened for the other party, and such is the rhythm of life. So the boy was training through his school holidays, hence sacrificed a lot of time and energy for this spar, so he was very disappointed. But I'm trying to teach the boy we cannot cry over spilled milk, as it will eventually go off anyways. The boy was hyped up for the spar, but I guess it wasn't meant to be this time. So I told him to just relax and unwind, as judo season is going to begin soon anyway, so hard training also will begin. Before the boy disappears with his golden ticket, I grabbed a short moment with him before he left to meet up with his delinquent friends and asked him just to relax all his mind and body and spirit. No pressure at all. Just tell me what he wants to do with his life, as the body doesn't seem to be interested in his academics or in trade. He ain't stupid, but he doesn't apply himself to his academics, so that path is closed in this conversation. So I asked him about pursuing a trade, and he retold me the story of when he literally almost lost his foot at the timber yard whilst doing work experience, informing that if it wasn't for his steel cap boots that I bought him, the rack of timber that fell on his foot would have basically cut his foot off. But luckily, he ended up with just a bruise, even with that steel cap. But steel caps gracefully saved my son's foot. So I asked him, "Are you going to wash dishes and mop floors like you did last summer at the local takeaway chicken shop?" And he said, "Hell no," as he had another bad experience there, which I may touch upon in a future episode if it is relevant. But so far, we have encouraged him to take the stereotypical safe career path of getting an education and professional qualifications. But he is a product of this generation Alpha, born in the richest time of humanity, and hence, excuse me for saying, sport and soft generation. If they were to grow up back in the 60s, 70s and 80s or even 90s, they would do as their parents tell them. But the modern day parent seems to be at their beck and call of the modern day child, as they are protected by so many new rules and laws. When I was their age and my mother wanted something, she would tell me or one of my siblings to get it, and we would willingly oblige and obey. Otherwise, kitchen utensils would start flying towards me. But in this day and age, we walk on thin ice around our children, and instead of them fetching what is required, their mother asks me to fetch it, as they are busy playing their online computer games. So back in my era, I was fetching things as I was a child, but now I am still fetching things, as in this era, the child seems to have all the power. When I was their age, if I talked back to my father, disrespected or disobeyed him, I knew I was going to cop some discipline in the form of pain. So I would not dare to do any wrong out of fear. But this was a reflection of the times. My father was born in the year Korea gained its independence from Japan in 1945, and hence was born into a Third World War torn country. So back then, the focus each day was survival and to strive forward. Very, very difficult to do. Most try to do just one or the other, survive or strive forward. But Korea and my father did both, and South Korea consequently became one of the Asian tiger economies, and went from going from third world country in 1945 and now to one of the top richest 20 countries in the world in less than 80 years. My father was born in that era, which forged a lot of hard men and gave their lives up for their cause. So Generation X and I had to deal with that. But in only a couple generations, my father's grandson is now born into the richest time of humanity in one of the most affluent countries in the world, which brings us possibly my biggest dilemma. And that is, can the boy growing up with no disadvantages, but rather having the spoils, privileges of a modern day child and his array of electronic devices such as iPhones, computers, PlayStations, which is the portal that opens up a new digital world that never existed when I was growing up. A wise man once said, "Hard times create spiritually tough and strong people who ultimately create good times." And he said good times create soft and weak people, which in turn ultimately creates hard times. Then the cycle continues. As with everything in life, the key is to break the negative cycles and continue the positive cycles. So the challenge of the modern day parent are real, and I've had many sleepless nights pondering upon the future of my son, and so desperately wanted to pursue attaining skill that pays the bills, but instead he seems to be a chip off the old block and doesn't want to pursue his academics, but rather pursue the glory and accolades of becoming a champion fighter. Time will tell. The boy says he wants to be a boxing and a UFC champion, so I need to rebalance how we are going to attack this. As with boxing, you only have to focus on boxing, that is striking with your fists. But with MMA, you need to know striking, wrestling, and grappling. The wrestling and grappling side of things takes many years of training due to the huge number of techniques. And his boy has been training judo since he was 5 years old, and hence he knows how to wrestle and grapple, currently at the national level. So now he is starting his boxing, his striking side, as in boxing there aren't as many techniques that they need to master. The challenge will be now balancing both, as they are both extremely demanding sports. Judo season starts next month and he will start competitions, so things are starting to get busy. His goals require a huge amount of commitment, but he's a Gen Alpha product, so the crucial question is, does he have the time, grit and determination required to manifest such a huge dream? Only time will tell. On that note, I'll leave you with a quote that I've informed my son and tried to drill into his spirit, that a true martial artist isn't the one who never falls, it's the one who refuses to stay down. One must ponder on this deeply.